An interaction with a pedophile. My name is Morgan, and at the time of this story, I was 14 years old. I'm a girl who enjoys the nerdier side of my life. This was my first experience playing Dungeons and Dragons with a few of my friends at a place called the Sci-Fi Factory. This is a public place, and to be honest, the place is worse for wear. There's holes in the plastic tables, gunk on the floor, crappy outlets, and even shittier people. The people here range from decent to just flat out creepy. This is something I learned the hard way. As I was setting up my elf rogue character, a man came over to my group. Let's call him Robbie. He told us he was 24 and talked to my friends. They seemed to know each other, so I was more than okay with letting him join us. He was white, brown hair, busted glasses that made his eyes look bigger than they are, and nothing out of the ordinary clothes. He introduced himself and his age, and then he asked the same of me. I told him my name was Morgan and I was 14 years old. Robbie quickly showed his weirder side. If it wasn't the conversation piece he was complaining about, he'd complain about how dumb his girlfriend was and tell her he came here just to avoid her. He didn't break up with her because she was his only source of income and shelter. He hated her. That was clear. He also bragged about the knife he stole from Walmart, and he even showed it to us. Hell, he let me hold it and told me how to flip it in and out without hurting myself. Remember those glasses? They were busted and broken up from a bar fight. That really unnerved me about this guy. He seemed so kind and friendly, but he was casually talking about assaulting people. Then he did what I never expected him to do. He got my attention and made me lean towards him so I could see his Android phone still plugged into the wall to charge. He had a notes app open, and it read, "Hey, I know this sounds creepy, but oh god, this couldn't end well, I thought. I think we should totally date," it said. There was a whole paragraph more written, but I didn't need to see what he thought of me. He expected some sort of response, so I gave him one. "Oh, no, I'm not really interested in a relationship." "Oh, that's cool. That's cool. We're still friends, right?" I said, "Yeah." What was I supposed to say? No to the guy that's been in a bar fight and has a knife on him? Neither of my two friends heard our conversation, so I was stuck next to Robbie for the next hour until the session was over. During that time, I offered him some gummy worms. They weren't my favorite thing in the world, but the Dollar Tree has good prices. He laughed and said to me, "Food is the way to a man's heart. Are you trying to seduce me right now?" I said no. You can say it's a joke and doesn't have any deeper meaning than that, but coming from the man who's 10 years older than me, who just asked me out, I wasn't really laughing at it. When I left the store after the session had ended, I told my friends what had happened. They believed me and told me he was kind of a weird guy. I've been back at that store and ran into him once again. He was with a group of friends and a girl I recognized. He kept on asking me to come over, and I insisted no. My friends who I was already with knew the story, and I was admittedly nervous. Even as we were leaving, he tried to get me to come over, but after that, I never saw him again. I later learned it's because he was arrested for assault and vandalizing school property. Funny thing is, he doesn't go to any school. Story 2. The woman in the white dress. This happened just yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm not quite sure what to think of it because it was just so bizarre and unbelievable. I might have just been sleep deprived, but here it goes. Last night, at around 2300, I was walking around my block. My town is relatively safe, so I didn't feel in danger, plus it was a pretty night. I'd been walking around for maybe 5 minutes when a pale woman with blonde hair and a white dress caught my eye from across the street. She was about my height and looked to be around my age too. I didn't actually pay attention to her after I first noticed her. While I circled the block again, she was on the same street, a couple feet in front of me. She was standing on the curb, just staring at the cars passing by. It was a main road, so even that late people were still driving on it. I said hello to her, and she turned her gaze to me. I couldn't see her face super well, but from what I saw, she looked like she had no pupils or even color in her eyes. She just stared at me. After a while, I asked if she was okay. She didn't respond again and simply pointed at the road. I was really confused and didn't understand. Right as a red car started coming down the road, she stepped into the road. The car slammed into her, and it was a bloody mess. The driver immediately stopped and jumped out. It was a man in his mid-20s. We both spoke about it, freaking out. He called the police, and I went around to the car to see the state of the girl. Once I circled around the car, she was gone. Not gone as in dead, gone as she just wasn't there. The blood on the road was gone too, but not gone from his car. After the police arrived, they concluded it was some sort of big hoax of a kid who didn't know what they were talking about, and some guy who went along with it. The blood on the truck was brought to investigation, only to be found as paint. Nothing else was put up about it. I'm still not sure if what happened was real. It felt so real, but I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what it was. If it was just a dream or if it was real. I remember it like it was. I feel like I can't leave the house now. I don't understand anything about it, and I kind of feel like I'm going crazy. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like that? Story 3. The Man in the Truck. Okay, so this happened just a few days ago when I was on a road trip with my cousin. I'll be referring to him as James, like I have. For a quick reference, I'm 13 and female. James is 21. James and I were on a road trip from my grandmother's to my aunt's house. I have a great relationship with my cousin, so my parents let me go on road trips with him occasionally. It's about a 10-hour drive, and we were about 3 hours into the drive. It was about 9 p.m. at the time. I was pretty sleep deprived, and everything was hilarious at that moment, so when I saw this red semi-truck outside my window, I just laughed my ass off. The man in the truck was heavyset, that's an understatement, and had a long, untamed beard. He had a creepy vibe, but I just waved to him. He in turn did a groping motion to me. Finding it more hilarious than creepy, I started laughing harder and told James the story, doing the whole groping motion and all. He looked creeped out and disgusted, but there wasn't anything either of us could do. A while later, about 4.5 hours into our drive, James pulled into the rest stop. I walked into the bathroom, and when I came out, the man was just standing there. He looked to be 6 foot at least. I looked out the glass door leading into the building and saw James glaring daggers at the door. I was confused and walked back to the car. What he told me really creeped me out, so much so I started crying. Then again, I'd been awake for around 20 hours. The man had stared at me and followed me inside the building, mumbling stuff about me. James said he was basically talking normally. He attempted to comfort me, but quickly said he had to go to the bathroom and went inside. A few seconds later, when I was in the car, the guy was at my window. He stared at me, a wide, creepy grin. He started saying I should go with him, and he was going to treat me good. He offered me candy and just tried to coerce me into his truck. I was busy bawling my eyes out. Then right on cue, James walks out and yells at the guy, threatening him. The guy backed off and got into his truck. He still stared at me, the grin still on his face. We floored it out of there, wanting to get far away from that guy. It was around 12 a.m. when we pulled to a motel to sleep. The rest of the night till 8 a.m. was fine. Nothing really happened. Sadly, that didn't last long. When we were at a restaurant eating breakfast, the same guy sat across from us. He grinned at me, and James just looked pissed off. The guy walked by the table when going to the bathroom and brushed his hand on my shoulder, doing the same on the way back. A quick note, James is a chill dude and will let mostly anything slide, but because he's known me since I was a baby, he was protective over me. He's not like that to even my siblings. He and I are that close. He was obviously pissed off before, but at that point, he stood up from his seat and walked over to the guy's table. He started yelling about how he better stop following us and back off of me. He made no threats, but he did curse a lot. I felt pretty nervous and just wanted to go. The guy stood up and smacked James and yelled how I was leading him on. The guy was about 6 foot and James was about 6'5". The argument continued until the cops came and separated it. They got the story and came to the conclusion that because he was assaulted, we could press charges. He said no, and we just continued the day. The rest of the trip was pretty bland. The guy wasn't seen for the rest of it, thankfully. However, James did follow me like a bodyguard wherever we went. Even though he was protecting me, I was terrified. He looked scary as shit, but he's a cinnamon roll. Also on the trip, I tried to ask him about what happened when I was 7. It was another story, but he played dumb. I don't know what this man's plans were, and I don't really care. All I do know is that if James weren't there, I really could have been in a lot of trouble. Following us from stop to stop, this guy really looked like he planned on doing something. Lucky for me, James was there to save the day.